Thomas Chalmers, in his book, The Expulsive Power of a New Affection, he writes, "The best way of casting out an impure affection is to admit a purer one, and by the love of what is good, to expel the love of what is evil." He's talking about how we grow in Christ and how we put off sin, how we win the battle against sin, how we stop just loving the world so much. And the foundation that he gives for it is really good. The foundation is the gospel and your response to the gospel. So much like in my sermons, when I've been talking about assurance of salvation, I've said, don't start looking for assurance by looking to yourself. That's not where you start. You start looking for assurance by looking to what God has done through Christ, through the sufficient work of Jesus on the cross, the fact that God is the author of salvation, that he called us, that he saved us, that he set his seal on us. That's what really assures us. And if we're going to have an assurance of faith, we need to be looking at Christ in the gospel more than we are looking at ourselves and our works. Well, Thomas Chalmers is making the same point for how we grow in Christ and how we grow as Christians. And his point is that the better you know the gospel of the grace of God, the more that you respond to it with worship and love. And that worship and that love leads you to filling your heart with a focus on God that doesn't allow you to have any room at all to focus on the world. Right? So James in James 4 says, you adulterous generation, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? And so Chalmers picks up on that and makes the point that in order for us to stop being friends with the world, we must focus our hearts on God. So he writes, salvation by grace, by free grace, salvation not of works, but according to the mercy of God, salvation on such a footing is indispensable to the deliverance of our hearts from the chill and weight of ungodliness. He says that when we think about the gospel, and if we add into the gospel our own ability and our own works in any way, we diminish what the gospel is. We make it into a sort of a negotiation with God instead of one where we are simply in awe. We're simply in awe of what God has done for us. We're simply relying upon God's work entirely. It's a work completely of grace. And when we do that, he says, when we respond by just looking at the gospel and in awe of the gospel, he says, along with the light of a free gospel, does there enter the love of the gospel, which in proportion as we impair the freeness, we are sure to chase away the love. So if you make the gospel less free, then you actually take away the love that we have for God in the gospel, because really you're loving yourself. If you say, well, no, I did things to earn God's love, then really you're focusing on loving yourself. But no, he says, no, when you see the total freeness of the gospel, you love God all the more. You fill your heart with the love of God. And then he says, never does the sinner find within himself so mighty a moral transformation as when under the belief that he's saved by grace. And he feels constrained thereby to offer his heart as a devoted thing and to deny ungodliness. So his whole point is that the more that you see the love of God in the gospel, the free grace of the gospel, God called you, God saved you, and you fill your heart with that every morning, if you are in constant awe of the love of Christ for you, if you're constantly looking and seeing how Christ responds to sinners, how Christ responds to you, and you're looking at that and you're filled with worship because of it, there's not going to be any room for a love for the world. It will naturally diminish. And so the point is, the foundation of your change as a Christian is not your strength. The foundation of your change is not merely you going, I have to do this. I will stop this. This is by my power. No, we start by filling our hearts and minds with the love of God. Everything we do in fighting sin, everything we do in living like Christ, it is always a response to the free gift of the gospel of Jesus saving us, God's love set upon us. It's a beautiful and a powerful thing, and I would encourage you this week to really focus on the grace of the gospel in your life. Focus on Christ's love for you. Fill your mind with it. Meditate on it. Listen to preachers talking about it. Talk to your friends and your family about it. Isn't it amazing how Christ loves us? Fill your mind with that. Fill your heart with that, and there will not be room for other things. Chalmers makes that point. He says, a true love of the world and a true love of Christ, they can't coexist in the same heart. One will drive out the other. And so let's use our love for God and our love for Christ to drive out a love for sin. And let's be marked by that. Have a great week.